All right, so number 5 here out of the 6 that he talks about is various types of values and oughts exist. Again, we're going further down the implausibility of where we're at in 2025 of believability here for the modern worldview. Well, there are at least 3 types of values that most scientists presuppose in their work. Moral values is one. One ought to record and report their data honestly and tell the truth about their experiments. And I think the past 10 years have shown that that might not be a high bar for people to stumble.
Be careful. Be careful.
over, under, around. So we should tell the truth and tell it honestly, even on our data. So if we're holding to some theory in the world and we find something that goes against what our theory is, even though we've got a big fat check waiting for us from the federal government, we should be like, no, I found the evidence that goes counterproductive to what I believe, and so I should throw out that belief and bye grant money. Right? But that's how it always happens in the real world. So that's the first one, moral values. Well, then there is also rational values. One ought to prefer a theory that is simpler, more empirically acute, more predictively successful, has a wider scope of explanation than its rivals, etc., such that if you violate them, you have done something irrational. And the third one is aesthetic values. One ought to prefer a theory or equation that is more beautiful and elegant than alternatives, such that if you violate them, you've done something irrational and ugly. At best, science can tell us what is the case, but it cannot tell us what ought to be the case. It describes but cannot prescribe. So it can describe but not prescribe. There is no ought, there is just the is there. Since they involve oughts that prescribe, these 3 types of values are assumptions of science that science cannot justify. And I'll plug a book review here that I have. I think it's one of our first book reviews on caveofthecross.com. If you click on the top for book reviews and you scroll all the way down, I don't even think I have a pretty cover photo for it yet, but it's Sabine Hassenfelder's Lost in the Math, where she argues that, her scientist friends are all trying to find the answer for quantum physics and the like. And, they're all looking for these values that are knowable and beautiful and simple. And she comes up against those claims and says, well, why should that be the case? And it's quite interesting. She used a lot of biblical references in her book as well. But she is making this claim of why ought we to expect this? We ought not to. And my review kind of goes into her presuppositions that kind of undercut her values there as well. But I will give her credit. I did tag her on ye old Twitter back in the day for the book review, and she did and read it and like it. So I'll give the German scientists credit there as well.
All right, number 6. So that was, values exist, right? And scientists adhere to values, and yet they can't. Scientism doesn't allow for that, right? That's the issue.